Great. Great. So welcome to today's conversation. Thanks for everybody who joined early. Quite exceptional. We had a lot of people joined very early today. So my name is Nelly Ibruka, for those who don't know me, and I am the host for this virtual series hosted by Space Hubs Africa. Today's webinar is quite special because we did it in collaboration with the Space Society of Kenya, led by Bram. Thank you so much, Bram, for working with us and bringing this dialogue to the forefront. We are very happy to have everybody join the conversation today. We discussed several things around the Africa space sector, and today we are focusing on Kenya. So just a little bit of background about Space Ops Africa. If you are not aware of what we do, this is a very small summary. We are a unique consultancy within the African space sector. We provide education and startup support services and market and policy analysis as well. You can go to our website to find up-to-date information about the African space ecosystem, about some key international partnerships that Africa has with Europe and some other partners. So we really give this broad overview. If you're new to the space industry and quite new to what Africa is doing, you can go to our website. We have a lot of interesting information as well. So our overarching effort or our overarching vision is to contribute to the development of a self-sustaining and innovative space systems ecosystem in Africa. We believe that young Africans and Africans in general can use space for the development of their communities. So at the core of what we do, we are hoping that we provide a platform where you cannot just learn only about space, but how to translate what you've learned or what you can gain from us into actionable steps for the betterment of Africa as a whole. What we are up to these days, quite on our radar, but on our radar right now is the Ghana Space Conference. We are very proud to be one of the leading pioneers and sponsors for this event. So we are open for partnerships and collaboration. If you want to work with us, contribute to the Space Conference in any way, particularly for media partnerships, you can talk directly to me. And I think I'll share my email. My email is at the end of the slide. Maybe after the webinar, reach out to me if you want to attend or you want to support this conference in any way. We'll be very glad to hear from you. So without further ado, on to this discussion, like I earlier mentioned, we are organizing this with the Space Society of Kenya to discuss about private sector and non-profit in advancing space technology for the development of Kenya. So public sector is quite important, but today's webinar is really streamlined to showcase the exploits or the work of private sector and also non-profits and what they can do, what they are doing. So we'll be hearing from some of the key players in the Kenya space ecosystem. And to moderate this session today, I have my very good friend, John Mark Ochieng. He has been with us for one of our discussions on space communication. Maybe I'll share the link to the YouTube in case you missed it. And I'll be handing over to John Mark for the rest of the dialogue. Thank you so much, and you have.
All right. Thank you very much, Nelly, for the introduction and the brief about Space Hubs Africa. I don't know if you could just share your slide that has the names of the speakers and
Yeah,
yeah.
I thought I should have that again. Yes, I think you might need that.
Okay. So it's quite an honor to be moderating this session and sort of guiding and seeing where we are at as the Kenyan space economy. And we have a couple of key players as speakers who are going to be part of this conversation. So I have two screens. On one side of my screen is the rundown of the program and the questions that I am going to ask. So if you see me looking to the side, then please don't mind that. Yeah. So, Nelly?
Yeah, here you
But
go.
anyway,
Yes. Hope you
thank
can see
you
my.
very much.
Yeah, okay.
Thank you very much. So this webinar is about innovation from the ground up, where we are going to be understanding the Kenya space ecosystem, as I said. And part of the speakers that are going to be present or participating in this webinar and sharing their point of view and the knowledge from what they've been able to understand about the sector so far. We have Bram Naholi. Bram Naholi is the founder and director of Space Society of Kenya. I will not read their entire bios, but hopefully in the segment that they're going to brief us about what they're doing, they'll be able to introduce themselves better. So Bram also has a background on in astronomy and astrophysics. And please, if I butcher anything about you, just correct me. Next, we have Charlene Jepkosgei. So Charlene is quite revolutionary in the space scene when it comes to diversity and inclusion. So she's the founder of Women in Space Kenya, an initiative that aims to connect young girls to mentors who are already established in the space scene. And this is in a bid to sort of build that capacity and encourage more young girls and women to get into this typically male dominated field. And so Charlene is also a geospatial engineer. So we also had Kimani Wanyuike, who is the founder and managing director of Leo Sky Africa. I don't know if he's in the call. So Kimani, if you're in the call, I can't check the participants right now, but if you're in the call, please shout.
I don't think it is quite yet, but I would keep in tabs with you. If it does come in, I'll just send you a message. Yeah. Or let him
All
know
right.
to, yeah.
Okay. So before we move to the segment where we have individual reflections of the kind of work that Charlene and Bram are doing, I'd just like to welcome everyone and thank you for joining us. So whether you're tuning in from Kenya or you're tuning in from the rest of Africa or anywhere else in the world, really. So we're going to be exploring the idea of innovation from the ground up. And this is not in the dramatic sense of rocket launches or satellite development, but in the everyday community-driven efforts that are quietly shaping Kenya's space sector. So the point of this webinar is sort of go to the ground and meet with the people that are actually getting their work done. So this can be through local initiatives, nonprofit startups, and partnerships that don't usually make the headlines, but they're really laying the foundation for something more powerful for the Kenyan space sector and by extension, the African space sector as a whole. So in a global landscape, often led by powerful nations like the likes of Russia, the United States, and countries in Asia, uh, the conversation has been really about these superpowers. But now Kenya is taking a different path, one that is grounded in local action and community-driven innovation. So this can be seen through nonprofits that are mentoring young women, aka Charlene's Women in Space Kenya, and engineers who are developing practical data tools for farmers to grassroots organizations advocating for inclusive policies. So Kenya's space ecosystem is actually being built with a purpose from the ground up, and most of the Kenyans in the call are really familiar with the bottom-up transformation agenda. Not that it is directly related, but I think for one to make a lot of progress, then it's much better to start from the ground up rather than from up down. So we are not just catching up as people who know each other in this call. We are going to be redefining how space can work for us here and now. So we're going to be hearing from these remarkable individuals who are contributing to this vision in their own unique ways. And they will also share their experiences, insights, and maybe even challenges with some hard truths. So enough said, I can talk on and on, but today is not about me, and I would like to pass the baton to either Charlene or Bram. So I don't know who would like to go first, if you have presentations or if you're just going to speak to us about the work you're doing. Charlene, are you ready? You can nod if you are.
I was just doing a final touch up on something, but I think I'm gonna do a short presentation. So maybe Bram can go ahead.
All right, Bram, over to you.
Can you hear me?
Yes, Bram.
Yes.
Yeah, thank you so much for this opportunity. I want to appreciate Space Hub Africa for having this webinar. I remember I met up with the CEO of Space Hub Africa in Kenya, and we discussed about the possibility of having such a webinar. and to see it finally happening, it's exciting. My name is Bram. I'm an astronomer and astrophysicist, and I'm also the director at the Space Society of Kenya. I appreciate everyone that's here in the meeting to come and listen to this discussion about understanding Kenya's space ecosystem. About the Space Society of Kenya, I would like to mention that Space Society of Kenya, it's an organization, space organization, that is mainly advocating for space science education and outreach, as well as innovation in an inclusive manner. I think we are more focused on getting everyone involved in space science and technology, including both students, professionals, and enthusiasts. So we are an organization that our doors are open to anyone who is fascinated by space science and technology. So I am not sure if this chance was an introductory or
No, it's so it's an introduction about yourself and the company you're representing. And then if you have a presentation that you would like to share, so this is the time to go about it.
oh, wonderful. So I didn't have a presentation, but I would like to talk more, share more details about the Space Society of Kenya. So as I mentioned, we are a non-profit organization with an objective of advancing space education in the country. So in Kenya, I think the topic of space education, space science education, is a bit, it's less advanced, and we can also refer to it as far-fetched. Very few organizations are, as well as private companies, are doing space education and space-related activities. So I believe that with the Space Society of Kenya as a key player in this particular space ecosystem, we can help shape the direction or shape the ecosystem, whereby we are a grassroots mobilizer, where we are reaching out to individual people who don't have background in space science, don't have background in engineering, but our main goal is to include everyone, to provide a platform where everyone with an interest, whether you are a big fan of rocket launches, as well as you are a big your dream has been to venture into space science as in a career perspective, but you didn't manage to do that. So with the Space Society of Kenya, we are providing a platform where you can actually utilize your dream by meeting individuals with the same goals, by interacting with researchers, scientists, engineers, and other people who also share the same goal as you. So activities that the Space Society of Kenya has been dealing with includes, we have been we've hosted a couple of stargazing events in the country. We've also done school outreach programs, and we aim to intensify that And you find that when you visit these schools, both high schools, universities, and primary schools, you find a lot of kids and a lot of students are so excited, and most of them sort of get shocked to find that there is such an organization that is advocating for space science and technology in the country. So we aim to bridge the gap between the common person and enthusiasts, and so we bridge that gap between enthusiasts, researchers, people in professional industry, as well as the common person, people who have no background in this particular field. And we also aim to position the Space Society of Kenya as an organization that could be able to shape Kenya's space ecosystem, basically by bridging the gap between the common person and the Kenyan government, so that we get everyone involved. So apart from stargazing events, other activities, and apart from stargazing events and space education, other activities that Space Society of Kenya is involved in include citizen science. I'm sure you've heard about citizen science, where a lot people are involved in science research projects. So we are aiming to come up with such an activity, because we already know the potential that people and enthusiasts who have shown interest in joining the Space Society already have. So we aim to promote research and advocate for a lot more space research going on. We also want to make sure that we see Kenyans get involved in space weather monitoring, Earth observation, cultural astronomy, and basically highlighting or giving a stage where people can share their ethnic communities' beliefs in astronomical objects. And yeah, so I think we are an organization that is promoting all aspects of space, from rocketry and propulsion, astrophysics, and astronomy, as well as space science, Earth observation. Yeah, so we, as an organization, we aim to give all these space-related fields equal chance, and we give opportunity to members to be able to join in and interact with fellow researchers and professionals in this field, so that we can be able to advocate and create awareness about space science and technology in the country. Yeah, so I think that's all I want to share about Space Society of Kenya for now. And thank you so much for this opportunity.
Okay, thank you, Bram, for that very insightful introduction and brief about what the Space Society of Kenya is and what it does. So, from what I understand, is that this is somewhat an all-encompassing community of space professionals and enthusiasts that is aimed at the various aspects that are space-related. So maybe I'll just ask a few follow-up questions, and then I will move on over to Charlene. So the first question that I would like to ask is, you mentioned that the Space Society of Kenya has been involved in different events and projects. So do you think that Kenyans believe that space is actually real, or do most of the people in Kenya believe that it is just something that is out there? Like, do they really get the significance of building or strengthening the space ecosystem? You're muted, Bram.
Yeah, hi. Yeah, so thanks again for the question. So I think that Kenyans, well, I've interacted with a lot of people in our outreach activities as well as events. So we have this group of people that believe that space is sort of inaccessible. And we have this other group that already knows one or two things about how we are benefiting on space exploration, space science and technology as well. So I think there is a need to inform the general public about the benefits of space exploration. And there are so many applications of space science and technology, so many benefits that we are enjoying right now, and not everyone knows. For example,
John, can you hear him, or is it just from my end?
Yes, Nelly, I can hear him.
Am I audible?
Yes.
Not quite sure. Think we probably lost him.
Can you hear
Okay.
me?
Yes, we can hear you now.
Oh
We
yeah,
lost
so I was saying that there is a need to inform the general public on why we are advocating for space science and technology awareness in the country. Earlier on, I mentioned that I've met so many people, and we have two distinctive groups where one group people in it believe that they know some of the benefits of space exploration, space science and technology, and why we need to sort of promote that awareness. And we have this other group, they are like in a cocoon, where they know that we are not enjoying any benefits of space exploration or space science application. So I believe that we need to create that awareness whereby we inform everyone really about the benefits we are getting from space science and technology, as well as space exploration, on why we're going to space. I normally say that most people think that we go to space the reason why we're going to space. Well, I've been asked this question quite some time, and the question
Brown?
goes, yep.
Please wind up. Yeah.
Yeah, so I believe that if we inform the general public about the benefits of space exploration, I think the idea on why we're doing this, it's gonna kind of get more people involved. Yeah, so I think that is my sentiments on that question.
Okay. Thank you very much. So clearly more work needs to be done when it comes to spreading the awareness about space and its importance. So we're going to move to the next segment where Charlene will give us a presentation that she had prepared. So Charlene, the floor is yours. So you can just start by a brief introduction of who you are, who you represent, and then please dive in. So you have 10 minutes.
Okay. Can you hear me clearly?
Yes.
Okay, awesome. So, hello everyone. I'm really glad to be here for sure, to share this space and to just share about my knowledge and experience. So my name is Charlene Chepkosgei. I am a geospatial engineer by profession. I would like to say that I wear many hats, but of course, today I come here as a founder of Women in Space Kenya. Under Women in Space Kenya, maybe even before that, I can just put up and share my screen. And then I take over. So let me just share. I think this one. Can you see my screen?
Yeah, looks very good from my end. Yeah.
Yes.
Probably just have to make it perfect.
Yeah, it's okay.
Yeah, it's fine.
All right. Yes. So, yes. So I am a geospatial engineer, and of course today I wear the hat of Women in Space Kenya as a founder. And basically, what we do in Women in Space, we in Women in Space we just empower more women into the space industry. Yes. So this initiative started last year when I came back to Kenya, and for me it's been through experience where I've been in spaces, especially in the space industry, where I saw the number of women in the space industry, of course, from the engineering perspective, since I did engineering. So the number of women representation is a bit less compared to the male counterparts. And also when it comes to mentorship, for me throughout my journey, I've had less experience in terms of having a mentor to walk me through journey, or even making decisions about a few things, be it private or even just in terms of profession. So through my experience now, of course, learning and also getting to the industry, I really saw a need for having a community where we support each other, and especially trying to bring up the number of women in the space industry, and of course trying to bridge the gap of having less women in engineering and STEM courses. So that's the reason behind Women in Space Kenya. So what we do, we have different programs under Women in Space, where one of it is a mentorship program where we try to link mentors, experienced mentors who are already working in the field, and mentees who are now, let's say, people who have either completed their university, or they're still in the university, but they want to chance maybe a professional career, or they just want to start maybe space entrepreneurship or something similar. So just about linking mentees and mentors. We already finished our first cohort that ran from January until May, and it's been very impactful for both our mentors and mentees. And then another of our programs is outreach programs, where we go to universities, schools, primary schools, where we go and talk to kids, and even now the young people, the women. Of course, we don't really seclude. So we just talk to them about their careers in space industry, what are the opportunities, what are the challenges, and how to overcome them. Of course, we tell them about our experiences, definitely. And yes, and the last one of our programs is on networking and having workshops and webinars. So we normally have that on a monthly basis. So either we do it virtually or even physical. Like in the morning, I'm actually from another workshop that we're having. It's actually ongoing, but I had to excuse myself to come and have this conversation with you. So that's all about Women in Space and what we do. And for me, of course, with this conversation on what does really innovation mean when you talk about ground up. So I think for me, when I see it, it's more like how do we try to come up with solutions that are tied, to the local context. So when you look at a system and then you want to understand, does it work in the top down or in a bottom up approach? So for me, when it comes to like innovation from the ground up, so when I was invited to this session, I really love the topic because it really feeds to what I believe in so much, where in as much as, yes, we are trying to create solutions, or maybe you're in any sector. Of course, for now we are in the space industry, but it's more about how do we really build things and even, let's say, solutions, but actually focusing on the local context, and for that, it means that you have to ensure you have community at hand always. Like every time you need to come up with a solution or a project, or you're doing something, for me, what it means, it's about like co-creating that solution with the community, or co-creating that, or creating a solution that can really impact the people you want it to solve for. Yeah. And now another hat that I wear is that I lecture in the Technical University of Kenya. So I am a lecturer. I teach on remote sensing and GIS. But apart from that, I see the value for sure of integrating communities and even universities into innovation. I've had and I've experienced working with students, and even when I was a student myself, of course, when you talk to people and they have ideas, so I kind of feel and see the role of universities and even these small communities like clubs and associations like what BRAM is doing. It's really impactful in so many ways because, for example, for me as Women in Space Kenya, I can't reach, a vast majority of people or maybe the women that I want. But of course, with different clubs and associations, with different communities like Space Society, we are able to bring different people together and we are able to ensure the impact is good. So for me, innovation coming ground up, it's mostly just now building that grassroots talent, ensuring that we have the hands-on training, yes, and we start from the people. Like you bring people from the word go when you're starting to design something until when you're implementing it. That's for me what it means when it comes to ground up. Yeah, and for me, what really touches my heart is the aspect of empowering youth and local innovators. And as I've mentioned, from clubs and associations, it's also about recognizing people and ensuring that yes, we have the skills or we have the technologies, but then how do we come up with these solutions and also ensure that we recognize them? So recently, we were able to, I was able to participate with this Gayathon challenge. I think it's Ghana based. And we had very amazing projects from students within our university, and they were able to, contest, and they had very good solutions, which are now actually solving problems. But also it's about how do we develop these real world applications, and also how do we support them? Because, there's the aspect of having the idea, and then how do you also support them in such a way that they can scale it up and actually make sure that it's really impactful. So I think the innovation from ground up, it's also about ensuring that once, let's say there's an idea, you also support that ecosystem. You have a full ecosystem that brings the idea into life, and then now you run through with them, empower them, and also you give them leverage to implement that and scale that up. So that's what I would see when it comes to empowering youth and local innovators. And of course, now coming and wearing the hat of Women in Space is that, of course, when it comes to these STEM courses and also being in the space industry, from experiences I've mentioned, yes, we have a bit of barriers when it comes to women and girls in space. And that's because, of course, as I mentioned, there was lack of representation and also mentorship. But now initiatives like Women in Space is now coming in to try and bridge that gap. So we try to provide that mentorship opportunities. And another fact is that, of course, when it gets technical, even from when you were young, at a young age, we were told maybe the tough courses or the mathematics courses or sciences courses are just for boys and for male. Yeah, so sometimes also the culture kind of influences about the choices that we make as women. And also, of course, when it comes to gender, the societal expectations. So there's a way the society has already described roles for maybe women and women. So you find that also can get into someone's system, and they can, decide to maybe the STEM or engineering courses are not for me. But of course, now when we have different initiatives, like what BRAM is doing with Space Society, we have Women in Space, then we are able to demystify and to try and break those barriers so that we're able to encourage, like, let's say, more women and also girls into different sectors. And the other one, last one, is just now to focus on how do we also support people who have passion about something. So for that is having financial supports and also networks. Yeah, so I'll stop at this slide, and then I will continue with the conversation, and then I know more questions will come. But why I really think gender inclusion matters is because just even looking at this picture, you can see when we are all equal, it brings some element of equality. So of course, also diverse teams show that we are able to have better practical solution. We are able to bring in different perspectives. So it enables us to bring different, of course, as a woman, I can have a different perspective about something. Maybe if we are working in a space technology or we're coming up with a solution. So I have a different perspective from maybe what John Mark would have. And of course, having that synergy makes really us to have better impact. And we, of course, we come up with more practical solution because you have the perspective of both worlds, and then now you're able to really design something that is impactful. And in all this, of course, women are essential to, to be included in most things, in decision making, in the aspect of implementation. So I think for me, it's just more advocating about equal opportunities. As long as someone is qualified, definitely, that we should just demystify the aspect that maybe it's a male-dominated field, but I really advocate for the aspect of inclusion and diverse teams. So all of us are equal, and we can always bring, our different perspectives that are really impactful. So that's what I see, and I hope for a future definitely that is more inclusive, more diverse, and well represented. So I'll stop at that and hand it over back to you, John.
All right. Thank you very much, Charlene, for that very insightful presentation on the work Women in Space Kenya does. So maybe an immediate follow-up question, and this is just to get your general thoughts. It's related to the work you're doing. So do you think mentorship is more important than policy reforms in the short term?
That's a very good question. Yes, I think the key word here you've mentioned, short term. In a short term, because I think for sure mentorship really works, of course, in a short term element, because you're able to really impact someone directly. But because when you compare that to policies have to undergo a certain process, and then it has to be approved. But you see, at the end of a policy, let's say a policy that has already been, let's say, proposed, for example, there is still the aspect of implementation. And when the implementation comes, maybe there's a section on mentorship, it still trickles down to mentorship. So I think initiatives already, like just having mentorship opportunities, really has a greater impact in the short term, because that is the actual activity, or that is the actual solution that needs to be done. Because you can have a paper that says people need to be empowered, or people need to do this and that, but most of the time we have in a scenario when it comes to Kenya. Now we're talking in the Kenyan context, right? So we know of scenarios where we have good policies. I think even everyone always say Kenya has very good policies, maybe when it comes to food security or climate change, or maybe gender balance, but mostly the challenge is always in the implementation aspect. Yeah. So for me, I think, and I've seen, the actual action is what matters more than what is in the paper, or what is, as long as there's an encouraging or conducive environment, then definitely you feel the impact more on a short term than having just policies that are good and smart, written well, and they're just in the shelves. That's my take.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you very much, Charlene. It's a very interesting take, and I actually agree with you. So mentorship actually goes a long way towards executing what is in a policy paper. So thank you. Next up, we were to have Kimani Noike from Leo Sky Africa, but Samuel Nyangi is going to stand in for him. So Sam, what we need is introduce yourself and then maybe give us a brief about Leo Sky Africa. And then as we go on, we'll have a session where I will ask a set of questions, and then we will also welcome questions from the audience. So Sam, whenever you're ready, please take it away.
Hello, good afternoon. I hope, John, can you hear me? Amazing.
Yes, Sam.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay, great. So my name is Samuel Nyangi. I think most of you know me under different hats, but today I wear the hat of, I'm the Chief Operations Officer at Leo Sky Africa. And what is Leo Sky? So Leo Sky was birthed from a vision of Africans in space, for Africans and by Africans. So our goal is to ensure Africans go to space by any means necessary. And primarily we do, because we have to start from somewhere. We what looks like taking us to space is rockets and all that, but where we envision starting from as LeoSky is number one, space education, because we believe once we inject the right DNA into the students who are going to be the workforce of the space industry, that means we have to start early. So one of the things we do is space educational programs that cut across primary, secondary, and university. And our primary goal for that is to inspire these kids to pursue careers in space. Because there has to be someone, if we are to be the Africans that will go to space, then it doesn't make sense for us to have the Europeans build that rocket or the Russians manage that mission. So we need to create a workforce, critical mass of workforce that will be able to take us to space, and that is what we do through our space educational programs. Additionally, what we are also trying to do is how do we leverage the night sky for space? How do we how do we leverage the night sky as a resource to add value to the tourism industry? Because one of the questions we usually get in space, anyone who's in space, I know you guys have gotten this question, is that how is space benefiting me? So what we've done as LeoSky, we've curated something that can be useful to the tourism industry, which is astrotourism. So what we do, we usually go train tour guides on astronomy and how they can leverage the night sky as a value add, because during the day, guests are looking at the wildlife, they're looking at all these other things, but what are they doing at night? So what we are trying to do is to add a value package that astronomy, that space, that the night sky can add economic value to the tourism industry. And then lastly, of course, is to space ecosystem building as LeoSky. So what we are trying to do is to bring all these stakeholders together. And I think I love what Charlene has mentioned, that we need all these people together. There's the aspect of community, government, private sector that need to come together to push the space industry forward. I think that is it from my end, John Mark. I'll be available to answer questions maybe after a few, maybe like 20 minutes, but I'll let you know.
Okay, thank you, Sam. But before you go, I'd like to still arrest you for a moment and ask you a question. So,
Yes.
in the local Kenyan space sector context, funding has been a really huge issue. So whether it's startups, whether it's non-governmental organizations. So this is just to get your thoughts. If you could, or if you had the power to, which one gap would you fill first? So would it be the technical capacity? Would it be access to capital? Or would it be regulatory clarity?
Interesting questions. I think all of them have an equal basis when it comes to the entry point of the industry or as a pillar. But I think they're all interconnected, because, for example, if we put our resources into building the technical capacity of the space industry experts that we want to have, but they, through lack of capital, they don't have somewhere to push that space entrepreneurship dream or build infrastructure that they can harness the skills, the technical capacity that they've learned, then it becomes a challenge. Same to, if we push the regulatory framework and have a solid, a smooth, interconnected space industry, but we don't have the technical capacity of the people to work there, then that also becomes a challenge. So I think they're all interconnected and important in driving this conversation forward. But if I had to choose one, I think it would be the people. So building that technical capacity, because then those are the people who can drive the agenda forward. I'll be biased and say that. I don't know whether it's because mostly we deal with capacity building, but yeah, that would be my take.
Okay. Thank you. So what I hear you say is that all these three aspects are like pieces of a puzzle that
Absolutely.
it's not necessarily that they will align all the time, but then when they do align, it actually leads to a greater picture. So thank you very much, Sam, for those insights. So, ladies and gentlemen, we have had, or Charlene, you have something to add?
Yeah, it's interesting. No, I actually like Samuel's perspective, but somehow for me, when I look at the through not experience, through exposure, and also the way I've interacted with the people in Kenya, especially the young people in Kenya, I kind of feel like we have the technical skills already. Like people are really very well equipped. And I can tell, of course, working in the university, that I've been able to, work with students, for example, and I see that we have really good technical background. Like we have the technical background and we have the expertise to do stuff. But most times, I kind of feel like it's for us to really grow and to really bring that innovation up. It's kind of feel like we are always limited when it comes to funding or financial aspect, like when it comes to the scaling up. So for me, that's my thought. And I'm like, yes, in as much as, yes, we want to grow, let's say in the space sector. And I know space sector in Kenya is growing, but I feel also one of the key components is the funding aspect, that we need to really figure out how to really support these technical guys, or the technicalities or the techniques that are there, because I feel like the techniques are there. Maybe the equipments are not there to let's say collect data and stuff like that, but I feel like the funding part is what is more crucial for us, especially in the Kenyan ecosystem, to grow and even now to diversify and to reach to the grassroots level. Yes, because just to give an example, I just finished doing, for example, a drone licensing, right? So then I'm a drone pilot, but you can imagine how much it costs to buy a drone to fly. And for example, for me, I'm passionate about solving or working with farmers, so solving agricultural problems. So if I go to a farmer and I tell the farmers that they have to pay for, for me to take images of their farm and do analysis and stuff like that, it's really costly. So most of the time we have the technology, we have the expertise, but now when it comes to the funding aspect, like empowering now the farmers so that they are able to really adopt in the how do you say, like they're able now to really take up the technology that we have, or the technical aspect. I think that's where the challenge is. So that's my take. Maybe Bram can add, or even you, John Mark, can add if that really makes sense. But that's what I have in my mind. Yeah.
Okay. Bram, is there anything you'd like to say on the three? So if you could pick one gap that you would want to fill, would it be the technical capacity, access to capital, or regulatory clarity? Bram, you're muted.
I'm sorry about that. Thank you so much again. So I think from my own experience, I think when given such an opportunity to decide, I think I will go with technical support, because well, I don't think funding is well, it's a challenge, but again, you can't sort of advocate for funding when there is when there is no technical support in place. So I think that there is a huge gap in areas technical support in space science and technology. Yeah, and that's the gap that I will definitely try to kind of close. But again, regulation will definitely have to come second. Yeah, because we need first to have a space conducive environment so that everything else can follow. Yeah, but I think that from what I've seen on the ground, I think we need a lot more technical support. We need a lot more people who are people who are doing, like astronomers, geospatial engineers. We need all these people. We need to kind of support what they're doing and elevate them to grow a space industry. Yeah, that's my technical support with regulation close second.
So basically, what I hear you say is like your thoughts are more aligned with Sam's thought, because Sam was also for the building the technical capacity. But I'd like to just share my opinion on what I think about the three. So when it comes to technical capacity, I feel like that is something that we already have. Because we have all these universities in the country that are offering these courses that people actually graduate from. But then what happens after they graduate from these courses that they're doing is, more often than not, you'd either find that they sort of look for opportunities abroad, or something insane happens where they have brain drain. So that means all these technical skills that they learned in school, they totally go to waste. When you look at access to capital, now this is where the meat of the problem is. Because you find that there are so many astrophysics graduates, there are so many geospatial engineers, there are so many remote sensing experts, and this is it happens across the country in whatever course, but in this one we are really focusing on the space sector. So you find that someone might have an idea, they might want to have a startup, but then they wouldn't know where to go to get this funding that would enable their research. And that is why you find that there are certain initiatives like the African Earth Observation Challenge that was launched yesterday. So I feel like more and more initiatives like that, where you organize a hackathon or an event where people actually tackle real world challenges and then there's a cash prize for them, then that is actually motivational towards achieving projects and ideas that would actually benefit the space sector in the long run. Now, when you come to regulatory clarity, I don't think there's a huge problem here, because for regulation to actually be a problem, then there has to be some sort of project that actually infringe upon these regulations. But you see now there are no projects. So basically the regulations are just sitting there gathering dust. So I'd say from my point of view, then the funding aspects really matters a lot. But like Sam said earlier as well, they are all interconnected. Yes, Nelly?
Yeah, you can finish your thought. I don't know if you're finished your thoughts on that. Yeah, I was just going to chip in because it's quite very interesting, the 3 points. I think they're all interconnected and we can't do one with the other. But just to add something a colleague was saying, she's a GIS expert, particularly for disaster management. And I heard her talking in one of the conferences, and she said a lot in Africa, a lot of the people for downstream, we know quite well that our space industry is largely downstream, right? But most of the people learning GIS, mapping, and all of that, that it's a lot of vanity metrics in terms of the training. So you see a lot of people say, we've trained 500 people GIS, we trained these people, we've trained so many people have so many trainings and skills, online courses, physical courses. But then if there's a disaster, like in her own context, it's very hard to get access to quick data and quick access to all these applications that will give real-time information on what to do. So it seems that there's really this big disconnect between the training and the technical capacity, the access to funding, and also translating those skills into like real actionable plans that we can use to solve problems on the ground. So yes, I on one hand I do believe that we do have well-trained people, but in other aspects of the industry, we need to upskill. More people need to learn more proportion for the upstream. But what we do have to fix is, this is not just a Kenyan problem broadly, is how to retain the talents that are learning GIS or whatever, how to retain their continent. I think Tando is saying it's a policy and strategy issue. Yeah, but it's a really big issue because we have all these well-trained young people in Africa, but then We really don't have the applications, people working directly with farmers. We don't have the markets, really. We don't have the markets like for downstream the way we should, considering our demography. So that's just, I'm not proposing any solution. I'm just saying what I think is the problem, which it's what everybody has been saying so
Yeah.
far. Yeah.
Okay. Thank you, Nelly, for your valuable insights. Bram, do you have something to add on the same?
Yeah. Yeah. So I was wondering, where does well, I mentioned that I think that technical support and capacity building would be my first choice, but I'm also wondering, where does like, I feel like we need to host have a lot more activities going on in the space industry, such as space hackathons, space conferences. They are there, but they happen like once in a blue moon. And so I'm wondering, where does hosting such activities regularly, where does it fall? Is it under, is that part of funding, or is it under capacity building? And if it's under capacity building, then I think I would still remain with my choice, because I feel like hosting such events will make, will promote awareness about space science and technology, which
Yeah.
is basically one of the most things that we need right now as a country.
Okay. That's true, Bram. But I'd like to. So I just opened the chat box. I see there are so many questions, and we are going to get to all of them in the Q&A session. But I've had the privilege of attending a session where Tando Mate, I don't know if I'm pronouncing your name correctly, was sort of moderating. And I am also into the policy and strategy, or at least getting into that space actively. So Tando, if you could please share your thoughts on why policy and strategy are a disconnect, preventing the uptake of, yeah.
Hi, thank you. I was coming in because of the comments on the earlier debate, or not debate, but conversation. I see that we do have a lot of skills, especially in the downstream. Like what Nelly was saying, we have a lot of GIS, remote sensing graduates, experts. And then when a disaster strikes, you don't see them in action. That's true. And that disconnect comes because of there's no implementation of strategy in that regard, because you see these GIS experts that we're talking about, they need a platform in which they can showcase their solutions. So for example, if there are students, maybe in Charlene's network, for example, who are quite adept at disaster risk management using GIS, they are not responsible. Ultimately, when the Nairobi floods came, was it last year or the year before? They were not the ones who were responsible for implementing those solutions. It is government at, let's say, local level or at national level. So if those national level governments do not have the platforms for these young people to then showcase their skills, then those skills then become useless. And then if we go back to the market issue that Nelly talked about, you find that we have a lot of talent actually doing, yield monitoring, crop health assessment, and so forth. Thousands of graduates can do that, and thousands of skilled personnel can do that in Africa, but there is no business enablement in that, because you need somewhere, you need a platform to execute those skills and make them make sense. So for example, if there's a consortium of agricultural services or agricultural extension services which are run by government or by private sector, then if they can hire those guys and allow them to execute their skills, then we'll actually see the value in there. So for now, all this value is there, but it has not been unlocked. And for us to unlock this value, there is need for platforms to do that. So in as much as we may have skills on the downstream, we need a platform to unlock those skills. Otherwise, those skills are sort of dead assets. We just hold them, they have value, but we don't execute them. Thank you.
All right, thanks, Tando. And I don't know if you had joined by the time, but this sort of ties to a question I asked Charlene earlier on whether she thinks mentorship is more important than policy reform, because at some point we need to have policies and strategies that actually enable frameworks in the space sector. So now we have come to the phase of this webinar where we are going to have questions. So I'm going to ask yes, Charlene?
Can I just say something? Just building upon what Thando just mentioned. I really resonate with what he said, and I really think it's really true, and it's something that we need to work on for sure. But yes, I think I just wanted to reflect now that we are having also this Kenyan conversation on ecosystem. Just also, maybe it's also a question to you, John Mark, now that we were together during the launch of the community of practice. He's talked about the aspect of having a platform to really now, like bring this, like now, like executing the real things. And I think the question that I've been asking myself with the part that we're trying to like build up these platforms like communities of practice, do you think it can bridge that gap for the like as a platform where the expertise can come together and actually like execute the challenges that are there? Because I think for the communities of practice, it brings on board different stakeholders. So it like kind of brings on board different expertise, and then they can address different thematic aspects. Do you think that is just sufficient to bring people together, or we still need another platform for really the execution? Like, for example, is it the youth mappers, the OpenStreetMap, right?
Yeah.
Like they normally have a platform where in case of an event or an emergency, they're able to access data and come up with solutions. So what's your take on that?
So thanks, Charlene, for the question. And yeah, it's interesting that you bring up the communities of practice that were launched yesterday. So if you remember correctly, then the idea is to really bring together these stakeholders, but not in one size fits all kind of setup. So it's more of like they're very specific, depending on the COPs that were formed. So I think it's not just a tool that would really bridge this gap. We would definitely need more and more initiatives that could actually lead towards to bridging the gap, because you find that if you have a, say, COP on astronomy or space science and astronomy, or even disaster risk mitigation or health and agriculture, you find that these are sort of closed off, right? It is only within the experts that have joined the COPs. So there needs to be an aggressive strategy that is more of a call to action, where more and more people can join these COPs, and then now at least we would be a step closer towards bridging this gap. I don't know if that answers your question or.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay, thank you. So we
Yes.
will get to the questions that are being sent in the chat box, but very fast as we move towards winding up, I'm going to ask a general question to the speakers that we had, and maybe if someone else in the audience has an answer to the question, then they can just raise their hand and then we'll see how it goes. So the question is, what does innovation from the ground up look like in Kenya's space ecosystem, and how can we build more locally rooted models of space engagement? And I feel like this directly ties to what we have just talked about. So, Charlene, I see you smiling. Would you like to take that up first?
Well, I was smiling because I kind of felt like I already said it during my presentation.
Yes, I remember, but just
Yes.
give a brief rundown of your thoughts, and then I will.
Yeah. So for me, innovation from ground up to me truly means the aspect where we co-design or co-create solutions with the people. Or if you have a project, or if we are we are the technical guys or in academia and you want to do a project that is, I think for me it's more about bringing people from the onset of a project and even designing a solution. Because if you're trying to solve a problem, and of course, if you're using space technology, it's about ensuring that you really create something that is really going to solve that problem, because most of the time there's a disconnect between the scientists, and the real problem on the ground. So I think ensuring that everyone is brought on board when designing solutions. So it's just more about like the bottom up approach. I think for me, that's what ground up innovation means.
All right. Thanks, Charlene. And maybe just a request for anyone else. Would you be open to sharing your presentation after? Okay.
Yeah.
So Bram, anything you'd like to add on the same?
Well,
basically,
innovation from ground up.
No, please proceed.
Can I go ahead? Yeah.
Yes.
So I think that innovation from ground up, from my own perspective, is that we start by sort of enriching the local talent, appreciating what everyone is doing. Because I've seen we have a Kenyan who is designing the rocket, but it's a booster. Yeah, so we need to sort of promote these local talents. I've seen a friend of mine, and I think you know Kafura, she's doing space art. So I think that innovation from ground up is we start by supporting these local talents, people who are doing their work in space, such as space art, rocketry. Yeah, we start by sort of giving them the platform that they require, as well as providing support, even if it's about sharing their content, as well as promoting what they are doing on social media. That is, I think, one thing that is going to help the local industry coming from ground upwards. And I think the second thing is that I think we should advocate more for cooperation in the space industry, as Charlene has mentioned, because I think, yeah, we should approach it with an intention of cooperating rather than competing. Yeah, and I think with the Space Society, we are trying to be able to reach out to key players in the space industry and see how we can collaborate. We've provided the visibility of key players in the Kenyan space industry in our website, as well as we've also been able to work with work on partnership with Leo Sky Africa. We've also had a partnership with the Traveling Telescope, and we are open to having more partnership with this organization, including the government through the Kenya Space Agency. So I think that is going also to be able to to innovate from ground up. And lastly, I think we need to promote indigenous knowledge about astronomy and astrophysics. I mean, astronomy in cultural astronomy, as well as support what our fellow our fellow partners, Dark Sky Kenya, doing in promoting or advocating for light pollution. Yeah, advocating against light pollution, as well as the need to preserve our dark skies. So to sum up, I think those are three things that are needed to be done to be able to innovate from ground up.
Okay. Thank you very much, Bram, for your insights, and Charlene as well. So I'd say the next person who was supposed to speak on this was Sam, but I don't think Sam is in a position to speak right now. Drive safely, Sam, if you can hear this. But I'd say just like in any organization or in any interview process or research project, the first thing that usually comes to mind is, from an organization context, is talent acquisition. So that is why you find that most companies, whenever they do their interview and find this person that they really want to hire, then they will do a probation period. So basically, this is the part where they assess the skills and how they are able to handle themselves in this work context. So I feel like this model of engagement can also be adopted in the space industry. So basically, different startups, whether it's government or non-governmental organizations, really spot these talents and then empower them. So you find that when that happens, it will be sort of like, before someone thinks about going to look for an opportunity abroad or in a different country, then they would be like, you know what, this company, Women in Space Kenya, actually did this for a certain Rachel. So what if I go the same approach and maybe just show them what I can do? So I do agree that this talent spotting and then just trying and simulating scenarios where we have people build, say, innovation concepts or projects, then I'd say that model of space engagement would really go a long way towards innovating from the ground up in the Kenyan space ecosystem. So I don't know if anyone else would like to give their thoughts on the same. If not, then I'm going to go to the specific questions that we have for both Charlene and Bram, and then now we will welcome questions from the audience and tackle the ones that are in the chat. So, Charlene, what are the main barriers to women and young girls' involvement in space in the Kenyan context? And why should this be prioritized considering the other challenges facing the space sector? So, what really makes these barriers to women like a focus, or yeah?
For sure, I think, as I mentioned also, the aspect of mentorship is one of the key things, because as just, of course, by the look of, if you just also just do analysis of the number of women in the space sector, for example, of number of women, and especially, let's say, in leadership positions where we are able to see them and they're actually doing something. I know maybe there are a lot, but most of them also are a bit maybe quiet about, or they're not on the radar, I would say something like that. So maybe the representation in terms of what women are really doing in the space sector, so that it can motivate more women to get into this technical industry, let's say now in the space or engineering aspect. I think the lack of representation is one of the barriers, and also lack of mentorship. So we have less mentors who we can look up to. And I think that's a very big area to really try and bridge that gap. So where we have mentorship programs, where we link now, let's say, people who are already in the industry and now people who are coming up, I think that can really bridge that gap. And the second one that I'd mentioned before was also on the aspect of STEM discouragement, from early education. So you see that when you're young, of course, like taking course like mathematics, all the sciences, like just growing up, you find that the society has kind of segregated that maybe this, like the way they normally say for colors, like blue is for girls, boys, pink is for girls, you get it. So I kind of feel like maybe also from early on, when we are young, the culture and the society has kind of a way tried to put STEM as something that is just maybe for the male, for male-dominated fields, and I think that's kind of puts a barrier for the women and the girls. but of course through exposure and also like doing outreach programs where you go to different the community level and create awareness about the different programs that maybe all women can partake, then I think that can really try to bridge that gap. Or for example, having role models, like if I go back to my community and I go to talk to the kids and I tell them, you know, I'm a geospatial engineer, of course, just by seeing me, they'll be able to be, they are encouraged and they're easily to take up, you know, such courses. And of course, also the aspect of gender societal expectations, where as women, we tend to just be told, you know, you just go to school, then you know, let's say you get married, you have kids. But of course, I think that for sure kind of also limits women when it comes to really growing in the career ladder, because at some point for us, which is a good thing, yes, it's both, we have to have families at some point, but I kind of feel there's a bit of a barrier for women because when you have, let's say, a child, I'm a parent myself, it takes so much from you as a woman, and you have to like set aside maybe your career for a certain period of time, right? So I think for that, it kind of brings you back. Of course, when you compare that to the male counterpart. So I would say the gender roles kind of also has a bit of effect and has a barrier when it comes to women in space or in any industry. And let's now talk about now the engineering industry. So I think that aspect of having responsibilities on the women perspective kind of also has a barrier. And the last one is limiting access. I mean, we have, let's say now, less, of course, nowadays we have a lot of, you know, initiatives that are saying women empowerment and all those things, but also maybe that support system, a structured support system, we need to emphasize more on that. Yeah, and that's why we have like now initiatives like Women in Space Kenya that tries to advocate for more of that. And of course, we, through partnership, the way now I've partnered with Leo Sky, for example, I've partnered with Kenya Space Society, we're able to reach out to more people. And I think that's how we need to bridge the gap. Yeah, so those are the barriers I would say. But of course, there are ways that we can always try to reduce that and ensure we have more impact and balance. Yeah.
Thank you very much, Shaleen. So what I'm hearing you say is that you just reminded us that inclusion is sort of a long-term investment, and that is so important. So when we bring more voices into the room, especially from underrepresented groups like women, we don't only change who's at the table, but we also change the direction of the conversations that we are actually having. And I think for a sector as focused for a sector as future focused as the space sector, then I think that really matters. I see, Joseph, you have raised your hand. If it's for a question, you're going to have a dedicated Q&A session. But if it's something that you really wanna say or your thoughts, then you can go. If not, I think he had a question, so we're going to have that in the Q&A session. So this next question goes to Bram. So from your work with the Space Society of Kenya, which policy or advocacy efforts do you believe are the most critical for building a sustainable space community?
Thank you for this opportunity. From my work with the Space Society of Kenya, I think that I think there is less support when it comes to grassroots space education and outreach activities. And that is one area that I would really appreciate seeing much sort of support from key players in the Kenyan space ecosystem, giving because you find that for you to go to a school and host an event, there is a lot that you need to do in terms of preparations, event planning, and actually some of these activities for you to host or to carry out a single space education outreach it's a bit expensive, such that one would need support from anywhere where support can come from. So I believe that is one area that I think it's needed to be addressed, and I would really love to see space outreach, space education getting more attraction and more funding in the near future. And number two, I would like to mention national framework, like the community of practice event that happened yesterday. I think such events promote partnership between public and private institutions, such as the Kenya Space Agency and the private sector, including Space Society of Kenya, Women in Space Kenya, and Leo Sky Africa. So I think we need to have more of such events regularly as well, so that we can be able to come together, talk, address issues that are affecting our space ecosystem, and coming up with solutions to some of these issues. And lastly, I would like also to mention what you actually had mentioned earlier about support for funding, because I agree with what John Mark said, that there are so many ideas that fresh graduates from universities have, but again, some of these ideas are not actualized due to lack of funding. So I would really love to see sort of funding for startups. For them to, if someone has an idea and they form a startup, to be able to try and capitalize and actualize on that idea. I think I'll definitely agree that they need support in terms of funding to be able to make the dream that they have and they want to achieve with this startup alive. So I'm gonna mention those three, as well as making space accessible to everyone in any way possible.
Okay. Thank you very much, Bram, for the powerful insights. So I don't know if you all remember when we started, or when I was introducing Tando to give his perspectives, I mentioned that I've been getting into the policy and strategy scene. So recently I've come to learn that the common belief that we have in Kenya is that policy is something for bureaucrats. And I remember in one of our previous engagements in the Space Society of Kenya group, this also came up, and it was actually a hot topic that elicited a lot of arguments and discussions. I won't get into that, but I think that policy is something that we should all be involved in shaping. Because if the rules are being written without us, then they're not written for us, right? And that is why in the development of the Kenya Space the Kenya Space Bill, they usually have these public engagement that bring together students, early career professional, or even established professionals in the sector, just to shape the kind of policies that are going to inform the space sector. So I feel like this is the only way that we are going to future-proof our space ambitions. Yeah, so I'm going to ask a final question, and you can really keep your answers short for this one, because of time. We don't want to bore everyone on a Saturday afternoon. So if you could change one thing or improve one thing in Kenya's space sector, what would it be and why? So since Bram just finished talking, Charlene, please.
Just one thing. I have
Yes,
several
just one.
things.
So just one. So you can maybe put them in a bowl and then pick one.
Yeah, I would say for sure now that today I'm wearing the hat of women in space, and trying to bring the inclusion aspect and diversity. I think I would really say mainstreaming gender policies when it comes to space industry. just ensuring that as we grow and even as we go, like especially when it comes to the growing in career ladder and in getting in leadership positions, I think we need to have a way to ensure that we have that gender balance on top management and levels, especially in the space and engineering sector. I think that's one thing I would really advocate for more, definitely.
Yeah.
And yeah, I think that's one of the things I would advocate for more, definitely. Yes.
I wonder who did not see that coming.
I wanted to say something
Anyways,
else, but I was like, yeah, let me just stand on that.
all right. Thank you,
Yeah.
Charlene. Now, Bram, what is one thing that you would change or improve on?
Well, I think one thing that I will change to improve the current Kenyan space landscape, I think it will be to increase funding for space education and outreach activities. Yeah, and I'm also actually passionate about gender inclusion in when it comes to STEM, science, technology, engineering, mathematics. So I think I agree with the point that Charlene has mentioned. I think that there is some sort of analogy that, well, it used to be, but right now I think it's sort of fading away, that STEM fields are meant for men. And I think that I would really love to change that. And I see organizations such as Women in Space Kenya advocating for women inclusion. And yeah, it's amazing. It's something that really needs to be addressed. And yeah, I'm so proud that Women in STEM Kenya are already on it. And with Space Society of Kenya, I think we're gonna support Women in STEM Kenya in the events to be able to address this particular issue, because we would want everyone, regardless of gender, to be able to participate fully in space science and technology. So I agree
Bram,
with what Charlene
please wind up.
mentioned.
Yeah.
Yeah, and
Sorry to
yeah, that's my
cut you
point.
short, but we are running out of time, and you've actually changed two things, which is a good thing. So now at this particular segment, then we are going to move to the Q&A session. And I know the audience has a lot of questions, but I'm going to start and read through the questions that are in the chat, and then we will go to people who would want to raise their hands and ask the questions. So the first that I'm seeing from my side is from Tom Polycarp. And he says, a big issue I have come across is gaining access to high spatial and temporal resolution data to allow us build many assets, especially in the climate and agriculture space. Do any companies here provide a sandbox for us to test, research, and develop with such data? So, Tom, I'm not sure if there are any companies in the call that actually do that, but I can speak from my perspective, or from my company or the company that I represent perspective. So I work for Digital Earth Africa, and this is actually part of what we do. We do have a sandbox that is currently inactive. Unfortunately, it's undergoing maintenance, but we do have these uh, a sandbox environment where you can test and do research that you may want. So next, I see astrotourism is Yes, Charlene?
Yeah, I can also add on that. I think also that we have open source. I think also, like, apart from Digital Earth Africa, definitely it's a good platform. We also have, I think, under Kenya Space Agency, I'm not sure if they have some satellite data, but if someone wants to really just work with images, they can check with Google Earth Engine that they can access any image that they want, and they can try to do analysis. Is it on cloud? Yeah, that's also another platform to
Okay.
just try and work with. Yeah.
I could not have said it better than a geospatial scientist, so thank you, Charlene. Next, we have astrotourism is impressive. Can we plug in? How do we get to know more about the project? Tom, please reach out to LeoSky. I think they shared their website. Yes, thank you, Ruth. Kenya hosts our CMRD, which is the most connected center for geospatial solutions. Okay, thanks, Tando, for that. It's not really a question, but it's an insight. So Yariwo says we also need to communicate better as the space community to the general public on the value of space and what it really means. Space has a lot of elitism associated with it, and we need to completely remove that barrier. I 100% agree with this. Communication really goes a long way towards breaking that barrier that space is for the elite. Space is a Western concept. So thank you so much for your insights. Yeah, so I see a question from Gakiri, a very interesting conversation. To spread awareness and interest among youth, making telescopes available in all learning institutions might be a good step. Can we assemble them locally? I think, Bram, you can answer this. Bram?
What's the question again?
So the question is, Gakire is saying it's very, to spread awareness and interest among the youth, making telescopes available in all learning institutions might be a good step. Can we assemble them locally? And I am directing this question to you. I could answer it, but please take it up.
Yeah. So thank you so much, Andrew Gakiria, for that question. Yeah, I believe that we could assemble telescopes locally. And we already have a member who is in the Space Society of Kenya who is actually doing that. And that's why I mentioned that we need to give the local talents credit and as well as visibility they deserve on what they're doing. So we've been talking to this person called Francis, and he's open to giving out his telescopes to, well, he's selling them. But again, he donated one to the Space Society, whereby we're hosting events and promoting and demystifying space science with that particular telescope. So I really think that it's possible to have telescopes in all public institutions, including universities, as well as giving Kenyans a chance to look through the telescope and learning more about the night sky.
All right, thank you very much, Bram. So Frank actually assembles and builds his own telescopes. But I do believe that since we are all in the space sector, then you guys who have companies like Shaleen and Bram, you can actually facilitate some sort of agreement where he sells his telescopes at discounted prices, or even maybe conducting workshops on how to create lenses or just the technical workings of a telescope. So I don't see any other questions in the chat, more are reflections. So now I'd like to throw this opportunity to the audience. So if you have a question, I know Joseph, you raised your hand earlier. So please, if you'd like to ask your question, then I think he dropped off. But yeah, anyway, anyone else who has a question? And please keep your questions brief and to the point because we are now coming to the tail end of the webinar today. So I don't see any hands raised. Yeah. Yes, Shaleen?
Yes, I know. I'm supposed to be expecting questions from the audience, but I have now a question, and of course, for me, a question I want to ask one, or maybe Andrew would go ahead.
Yes,
but I wanted to ask you a question, John Mark, and then I'll ask one to Helen.
Okay.
Yes. So my question is just for you, John Mark, and maybe also Bram can add to it. Like 10 years from now, what would a thriving Kenyan space ecosystem look like, according to you?
According to me, 10 years from now. Um, so is this considering the state of affairs, the trajectory that the country is going through? So being that we are already having these conversations and we already have the initiatives like the communities of practice that have been launched, I foresee a scenario where in 10 years, where rocket launches might still be a stretch, but then at least we would have centers of excellence or satellite development that are already in place. So that is where I foresee the space sector getting at in 10 years, because you already have people who are upskilling in the space systems engineering space. And then there's also the Earth observation space. So I feel like if these two sort of blend and there's some sort of interconnectedness, then I believe that we would have centers for microsatellite development in 10 years. I'm hopeful for rocket launches, but I also think that that is still a stretch in 10 years for Kenya with the current state of affairs. So, yeah.
Brown?
Yeah, so I think I made a whole list of 10 points that are 10 things that I envision to happen the next 10 years, and I shared with the Space Society of Kenya community. But
And
to
just mention one,
summarize,
yeah.
I'm gonna mention 3 of them. So number one, in next
Please
Go ahead. Yes.
reduce them to 1.5 or 2 because of time.
Yeah, so I think that I envision in 10 years' time, I think all the 47 counties in Kenya will have adopted the Earth observation applications, whereby they use spatial data to solve real-time challenges, including applications in agriculture, as well as floods and disaster monitoring. And we have many other applications. So I envision a future where all 47 counties in the country will have acquired this particular technology and be able to use spatial data to be able to solve real-time challenges in their respective counties. Number two, I'm gonna mention that I envision a future where in next 10 years, we as a country, we will have or we are going to adopt the space science and education to integrate it into our national curriculum, so that kids start learning about astronomy, about space science, about Earth observation as early as from primary school. And finally, I also envision a future where we'll have a lot more funding for startups and non-profit organizations doing space outreach, education, and innovation in the country. So I'm gonna end it there with those 3 points.
Okay.
Awesome.
Thank you
Thank
very
you.
much, Bram.
Can I ask Helen?
Oh yeah, sure. Sorry.
Yes, I had the 2 questions. So for Helen, or even Thando can answer, but Helen, how can now us as Kenyan, or the Kenyan ecosystem really better collaborate with other African countries, and now you're from Ghana, to actually scale up the space innovation? Now that we are talking about space innovation, how can we better collaborate?
Yeah, I was going to answer your question, but you didn't get my country right, so no, I wouldn't answer your question. So I'm going to push it to Tando. Okay, just a quick one, and if Tando has anything to chip in. I'm from Nigeria, by the way, and I think
Yes.
a lot of our webinars where we talked about Africa's space identity. Tando really emphasized on the point on bilateral cooperation within Africa. African countries need to work together. I think for me, it's bringing in the non-space into the dialogue, our diplomatic arrangements, international organizations that we're already a part of as African countries. We need to take advantage of those ties. Like, for example, West African countries have ECOWAS, East Africa have their own East African community as well. Francophone countries have their own community as well. And I think a big part of it is the space industry, and people that work in space just want to have these dialogues within space, but it might not work because of how nascent the conversation is. But if we take it to already these organizations that are already have a high integration prospect and have already been very institutionalized, then we might be able to push the bilateral and multilateral cooperation for space with these organizations. So apart from the African Union, I think it's very critical that we go back to these non-space international institutions that already exist in the continent and see how we can bring space into the dialogue as well. A lot of African countries have some trade partnerships, between Nigeria, Ghana, or maybe Kenya and South Africa. There are all these trade partnerships that are already existing. What we have to do, rather than trying to create something new entirely, is to see how we can layer space gradually into these institutions that are already in place. I think that would be my quick suggestion. And I would read Tado's own. He said, to foster more collaboration, we need to operationalize regional frameworks for solutions and actually implement them from the ground. Okay, he's sending more messages. This is such an interesting conversation. Unfortunately, we don't really have all the time, so we might have to
Sure.
wrap up.
We should continue with that conversation. Definitely. Yes.
Yeah.
Looking at solutions only. We'll just be talking about solutions and the
Yes,
implementation.
yes. I think someone sent a message from at the group chat that we really need to laud what we're doing in the space industry. We need to really engage more on social media. We have to take space mainstream. That's one of the ways that we can start getting local support. We can start getting VC. We can start getting funding from other people that are not in the industry, because we cannot rely on our own space ecosystem. Yeah.
All right. Back to you, John Mark. Sorry.
Yeah, John Mark. Yeah, back to you, and then quickly back to me because I have to wrap up the conversation. Thank you.
So I think we had one question from Andrew. We'll take that as the last one. And then I'll hand it back to you, Nelly. So Andrew, please, if you still have your question, unless it has been answered already.
Yes.
Yeah, thank you, John Mark. Yes, Bram answered my question. I just wanted to say hello again and thank you for this session. It's very informative. I represent a team from Dark Sky Kenya, just recently joined the team, and we shall be making ourselves known to you in due course. So congratulations again, and very nice to meet you all. Asante.
Okay, thank you, Gakiria. Murio, Andrew, Kuria, you had a question.
Yes, I had a question, and it's more of a follow-up thought, but it's still a question. And first of all, I'd want to thank you all for the insights shared so far here. And what I'd want to target majorly is SSK in space awareness in Kenya. There's a major lunar eclipse happening this September, and I believe this could be a catalyst for public engagement in the bringing together of people to witness it, live viewings, community meetups, or even virtual watch parties, pushing this content through social media applications. Educational posts could really ride this wave of this celestial moment. It's rare, visual, and accessible. The kind of event that makes the cosmos feel ready to everyday Kenyans. If leveraged well, it could massively amplify SSK's presence and spark national curiosity around astronomy. Just a thought I felt worth sharing.
Okay, thank you very much. And before I hand it back to Nelly, I'd just like to share a fun fact. So tomorrow actually marks 56 years since man first landed on the moon. So it is International Moon Day. So on that note, thank you everyone. You've been a great audience. And now I hope I was also a great moderator. I will hand it back to you, Nelly. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much. I'm just going to quickly share my screen and then give my final thoughts. And I want to thank Space Society Kenya and all our speakers, and thank John Mark for moderating the session. This will be the first time we are having this model where we have maybe people from that ecosystem or that topic or that country, have full control. And Kenyans, you guys are amazing. This has been so interesting and so informative, and the dialogue has been so good. Thank you, John Mark, and all our speakers. And thanks to Samuel. I don't know if he's still on the call, but he was driving and he had to quickly, chip in his thoughts for Leo Sky Africa. Really appreciate the sacrifice. And to summarize, and this is a monthly webinar series, like I said at the beginning of the call. So would like to hear from you. My colleague is going to post our webinar survey form now. If you want to give us some feedback on what you talked about today's webinar, or maybe a future discussion that we can have, we would like to hear from you. And like this conversation was done in collaboration with Space Society Kenya, we are open to having more collaboration to host the dialogues that need to happen in Africa. And also don't forget to follow us on social media as well. Right before I end the call, I don't know if our managing director would like to say a few words. Kweku, if you're on the call and you want to say a few words, and then we'll take a picture. Please don't leave everybody. We'll take a group photograph for the future. Thank you.
Hi, Nelly. Thank you for the introduction. I don't have too much to say. I think this was a very interesting and insightful conversation. I'm glad it was able to take place. Myself, I was in Kenya a couple of months ago, actually, where I got to meet Bram and some of the other Kenyan stakeholders. And indeed, it's a very interesting and exciting ecosystem where there appears to be a lot of potential. So it's nice that to hear from more Kenyan stakeholders, to also hear about the challenges, because I think it's important to also understand what's holding us back and where we can improve. So thank you, Nelly, for hosting once again another great session. Thank you, John Mark, as well, for your contribution. And that's all I got to say. Back to you, Nelly.
Thank you. Yes, thanks, Kweku. Thanks. Yeah, it's always great to just put you on the spot sometimes. And yeah, thank you everybody for coming. And if you want to join us for a quick photograph, we would really like that. So please put on your cameras and let's take a quick photograph. Charlene has to go back for her outreach program. Thanks for coming and just jumping out of that. So yeah, we'll let you go, Charlene, very soon. So more cameras, please, and more cameras, please. Okay, thank you, Andrew. Good to see you. Maybe one or two more. Okay. One more second. Okay, yeah, I think that might be all we are having for today. Okay, who's taking the camera, the picture? I would say cheers, and I'm not taking it, but quick, could you help? Okay, yes, great. Thank you. Okay, everybody, cheers. Okay. Great. Great. Thank you. Okay. Good to see all of you. Hi, Chelsea, David, Robinson. I hope to see everybody next month again. Yes, thank you. Okay, great. Have a lovely day, everybody.
Thanks, Nelly. Bye.
Bye.
Thank you so much. It was a pleasure being here.